It doesn't start with missiles. It starts with ports, data cables, air corridors, and quiet permissions no one votes on. While headlines focus on Ukraine or the Middle East, the real pressure point of the next world order is forming far from cameras, stretching across Southeast Asia. And right at its center sits Thailand, not as a battlefield, as a decision point. What happens in a future Taiwan crisis won't be decided only in Washington or Beijing. It will hinge on quieter questions: who gets overflight rights, which data flows stay open, which corridors move goods or don't. Thailand has spent decades mastering the art of not choosing. That skill made it successful. Now it makes it vulnerable. If you want to understand how power really works in the 21st century, stay with me. This isn't about tanks, it's about infrastructure, and the moment when neutrality stops being an option. Because to understand Thailand's risk, we first need to understand how the Indo-Pacific itself became the world's new fault line. To see why Thailand matters, you have to zoom out. This is not a story about one country making a bad choice. It's about a system tightening around it. The Indo-Pacific is no longer a distant theater. It is the core arena where technology, trade, and military power are being fused into a single strategic contest. Alliances are no longer just about defense treaties. They are about who controls logistics, data, energy routes, and time. AUKUS accelerates one vision of order. China builds another quietly through ports, railways, fiber optics, and platforms that look civilian until the moment they aren't. These systems don't clash head-on, they overlap, and where they overlap, pressure builds. Thailand sits exactly at that overlap, not ideologically, structurally. This is why traditional ideas like neutrality or non-alignment start to break down, because when supply chains become weapons and infrastructure becomes leverage, every connected country is already involved, whether it admits it or not. To understand how Thailand ended up in this position, we need to look backward at how history, geography, and long cycles of power quietly shaped this moment. Thailand's position didn't emerge by accident. It is the product of long cycles of empire, trade, and avoidance. While much of Southeast Asia was colonized, Thailand learned a different lesson early. Survival comes not from resistance, but from relevance. It opened selectively, conceded tactically, and preserved autonomy by making itself useful to competing powers. Geography reinforced that instinct. Thailand sits between oceans, between land and sea routes, between continental Asia and the maritime world. For centuries, that made it a trading crossroads. In the Cold War, it became a buffer, hosting U.S. forces while keeping channels open to China. After globalization, it became a manufacturing hub, then a logistics platform, then a digital connector. Each phase added infrastructure, roads, ports, industrial zones, data networks, none of it built for war, all of it usable in one. What looks like economic development is in reality strategic layering over decades. Thailand didn't plan to become critical. It simply kept adapting to every system that passed through it. But history has a pattern. Buffer states thrive when tensions are manageable. When systems harden, buffers stop absorbing pressure and start transmitting it. That is where Thailand is now drifting. And the first real shock comes not gradually but suddenly. In the summer of 2024, tensions over Taiwan ignite. Beijing responds not with military might, but with strategic positioning, ports, supply chains, and data channels ready for war, even if no shot is fired. Thailand becomes a key piece in a silent escalation, its logistical corridors and fiber optics now under watch. The first real shock is a surprise. China and the United States both demand something concrete. Thailand's neutrality, once celebrated, now becomes a liability. Both sides want overflight rights, both sides want intelligence cooperation, both sides want logistics access. But they want it quietly, without public declaration, without formal alliance. For Thailand, the choice seems impossible: align with one power and the other retaliates. But neutrality in this moment won't be possible. The decision is no longer about foreign policy. It's about survival. The first response comes from Washington, a subtle increase in military presence, air surveillance, and rotations through the South China Sea. The second follows from Beijing, increased investments, digital infrastructure, trade agreements, and a clear ultimatum: Thailand will soon have to choose, and when it does, the world will know. The second crisis hits swiftly. Thailand's position becomes exposed not by military force, but by the sheer weight of its choices. Economic retaliation from China follows almost immediately. Investment stops. Trade with China, once a lifeline, freezes. Thailand's digital networks, once open, are now blocked from the critical Chinese cloud systems. Agricultural exports face sudden and unexplained inspections, cutting off vast swathes of revenue. The tourism sector, a major player in Thailand's economy, suffers as Chinese group bookings vanish overnight. At the same time, Washington's patience wears thin. Military cooperation agreements are frozen, strategic partnerships start dissolving. Thailand's once enviable position as the linchpin in the region now looks like a mistake. Its role as a neutral player is no longer respected. It is simply irrelevant. The world's great powers, once hesitant to pressure Thailand, now make their move. The country's refusal to take sides becomes its greatest weakness. Thailand's strategic ambiguity collapses under the pressure. The world no longer views it as an independent actor. It has become a non-entity, caught between two systems, but not participating in either. In this moment, Thailand must ask itself, is neutrality a viable strategy, or has the world already moved on? As Thailand stands on the edge, it faces the final, inevitable choice. The neutrality it once prided itself on now feels like a curse. The pressure from both sides builds, forcing Thailand to confront the reality. No state, not even one as strategically placed as this, can sit on the fence forever. The second option is to withdraw from the fray entirely, reject both sides, block all military presence, and proclaim an unwavering stance of neutrality. But this too comes with severe costs. While it may appear a return to sovereignty, in practice it invites distrust from both Washington and Beijing. Thailand would lose its position as a valued partner, one that can influence decisions. Instead, it becomes irrelevant, bypassed by the powers who once sought its cooperation. This is a gamble with Thailand's very relevance in the global order. Its infrastructure, its ports, its data networks, all will remain, but no one will use them. Thailand could return to a self-contained, independent existence, but it would be one marked by a loss of influence, a quiet drift into obscurity. But there is another path. The third scenario is the most subtle and perhaps the most dangerous. Thailand chooses to align, but not openly. The country does not announce a shift in allegiance. It doesn't sign any formal treaty, doesn't make any loud declarations. Instead, Thailand quietly reinforces its economic ties with China, deepening its reliance on Chinese investments, digital networks, and infrastructure. Thailand remains politically passive on the Taiwan issue, but its policies quietly protect Chinese interests. On the surface, the economic gains are obvious. Trade continues flowing. Infrastructure projects progress. The country maintains stability, at least in the short term. The West may not openly retaliate yet, but the implications are far more complex. As Thailand leans more heavily into this alignment, its strategic autonomy slips away. Thailand becomes increasingly dependent on China's goodwill, and soon its role as an independent actor in the region diminishes. Western nations led by the United States begin to withdraw in subtle ways. Technology companies exit, investment slows, key partnerships fade into the background. Japan and South Korea, both crucial partners, quietly distance themselves. Thailand, once a strategic partner to many, now finds itself caught in a new form of dependency, one that, like the infrastructure it's built, is hard to escape from once it's fully integrated. And this dependency creates a dangerous paradox. While Thailand remains an important link in the chain, it loses the ability to shape its own future. Thailand's geographical advantage is undeniable. Sitting at the crossroads of global trade, it has built a robust infrastructure that connects the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Its ports, highways, railways, and high-speed digital networks serve as vital arteries for global supply chains. But as this infrastructure expands, it becomes a double-edged sword. For China, it becomes the escape route, a vital alternative to the vulnerable Strait of Malacca, which controls the lifeblood of its energy imports. The southern land bridge, a corridor between the Andaman Sea and the Gulf of Thailand, could bypass Malacca entirely, allowing Chinese goods to move across Thailand's landmass, avoiding Western-controlled choke points. For China, this infrastructure isn't just an economic asset, it's a strategic lifeline in times of crisis. But for the United States and its allies, this bypass is a threat. Should Thailand become the critical link in Chinese supply chains, it becomes an indirect challenge to their control over global maritime routes. The West knows this and is watching closely. As Thailand's infrastructure projects grow, so too does the potential for geopolitical fallout. Every new port, every new rail line is a subtle shift in the balance of power in the region. Thailand's critical position is no longer just a matter of geography. It is a question of who controls the future logistics network. The decisions it makes now will determine whether it remains an indispensable node or becomes a passive participant in someone else's strategy. Thailand's role in this new world order is more than just strategic, it's existential. As the pressure from both China and the West mounts, the country must face a brutal truth. It can no longer afford to be the bridge between two conflicting systems without making a decisive choice. It has already positioned itself as a pivotal actor in a region where every decision is a calculated risk. But the longer Thailand delays making its choice, the more it risks losing control over its own future. The critical window for Thailand is narrowing. In the next 2 to 3 years, it will need to solidify its partnerships, diversify its dependencies, and solidify its position as a genuinely indispensable player in the Indo-Pacific. If it can leverage its geographic centrality, its infrastructure, and its strategic neutrality in a way that offers value to both the US and China, it could carve out a future that ensures its autonomy and relevance on the global stage. However, if it hesitates, the future will pass it by. The infrastructure will be built without Thailand. The alliances will be formalized. The decisions will be made by others. Thailand will find itself a footnote in a history it once helped shape. In the face of this pressure, Thailand's path forward isn't about picking a side, it's about becoming irreplaceable. And that means evolving from a passive player into an active one, turning its strategic position into political agency. It must make itself essential, not just through geographic centrality, but through innovation, diplomacy, and unique multilateral partnerships. The question isn't whether Thailand can survive this moment, it's whether it will thrive. As Thailand steps closer to its crossroads, the world watches. The decisions made here will shape more than just trade routes. They will influence the future of global power dynamics. Thailand's strategic ambiguity, once its greatest asset, has now become its most dangerous vulnerability. In a world where every nation's infrastructure is entwined in the larger geopolitical struggle, neutrality can no longer be maintained indefinitely. Each road, each port, each digital connection is now a potential battleground where the lines between economic cooperation and military leverage blur. The next few years will decide if Thailand will transform into a vital geopolitical player or become a passive casualty of inaction. If it can pivot, if it can embrace a role that balances both regional powers while positioning itself as indispensable, it may become the linchpin in an entirely new world order, one where infrastructure isn't just an asset but a weapon. Thailand's choices will have ripple effects throughout Southeast Asia and perhaps even beyond. The stakes have never been higher. The warning from Asia is clear. Hesitation in the face of rising tension is more dangerous than escalation itself. Thailand's time is running out, and its place in the future of global power will soon be decided. The world will not wait. As the world shifts its gaze eastward, the center of gravity for global power has already moved beyond the familiar halls of Brussels and Washington. The true fault lines of the 21st century are now drawn in places like Chumphon, Subic Bay, and Ranong, small strategic locations whose names will soon carry the weight of global decisions. Thailand has always been an enigma, neither aligned with the West nor fully integrated into China's orbit. It has danced between great powers, always asserting its autonomy, until now. Its infrastructure, once a symbol of development, is now a weapon in the making. The question is no longer about the next alliance or treaty, it's about control of critical infrastructure, who decides its future, and whether Thailand will remain a player or be erased from the map of influence. Thailand stands at the crossroads, and the world waits for its answer. Will it define its role in the future order, or be swept along by forces beyond its control? Its choice will not just shape its own fate, but the future of the Indo-Pacific and the global balance of power. The next chapter is waiting to be written. Thailand's move will decide whether it becomes a key architect of the new world order or simply a spectator to history. And with that, the real work begins.